The Vialian research vessel Starlight Harmony shuddered violently as another system failed. Captain Threnic gripped the command chair with his delicate, translucent fingers, watching helplessly as warning lights bathed the bridge in angry red. His crew of scientists moved around him like ghosts, their gossamer wings barely keeping them steady as the ship lurched through space. "Engineering report," Threnic called out, his voice carrying the melodic quality typical of his species. Science Officer Lylan turned from her crystal console, her large eyes reflecting the emergency lights. "Captain, the quantum drive has completely shut down. The cascade failure is spreading through all our primary systems." Her voice trembled slightly. "At this rate, life support will fail within 6 hours." The Vialians were a peaceful race, evolved on a world of gentle breezes and perfect temperatures. Their technology reflected this harmony, elegant, efficient, but terrifyingly fragile when things went wrong. Everything on their ship was designed for their homeworld's paradise-like conditions, not the brutal reality of deep space emergencies. "Send out the emergency beacon," Threnic ordered, trying to keep hope in his voice. "The nearest Vialian colony should receive it within the hour. Help will come." But as the minutes ticked by, no response came from their own people. The ship's delicate hull began developing microfractures from the stress. Radiation from a nearby stellar phenomenon started seeping through their failing shields. Each passing moment brought them closer to disaster. The Vialians weren't built for this kind of crisis. Their bones were hollow like birds, their skin thin and sensitive to temperature changes. What would be minor inconveniences to hardier species became life-threatening emergencies for them. A small radiation leak could kill them in minutes. A drop in cabin pressure would crush their delicate respiratory systems. "Captain," Lylan's voice was barely a whisper now. "Long-range sensors are detecting an approaching vessel." Threnic's hopes lifted momentarily. "From which colony?" "That's the strange part, sir. The trajectory suggests it's coming from—" She paused, checking her readings twice. "From Sector 847b. That's where the new blue planet is located." Every Vialian on the bridge went silent. They all knew about the blue planet, Earth, as its inhabitants called it. Their databases had classified it as a Class 12 death world just months ago. The conditions there were so hostile that their scientists had deemed it impossible for intelligent life to evolve, let alone thrive. The planet had crushing gravity, toxic atmosphere in many regions, extreme temperature variations, and was bombarded by dangerous radiation from its star. Violent storms raged across its surface regularly. The ocean currents could crush their ships, and the geological activity would shake apart their delicate cities in minutes. "Are you certain about those readings?" Threnic asked, though he trusted his science officer completely. "Yes, Captain. The vessel is definitely approaching from Earth's direction. And, sir," Lylan's voice carried a note of confusion and growing fear, "the ship's design doesn't match any known peaceful exploration vessel in our databases." On the main view screen, the approaching craft slowly came into focus. The Vialians stared in growing horror at what they saw. The ship looked like it had been built for war, not rescue. Its hull was thick and heavily armored, covered in what appeared to be weapon systems. Massive engines pushed it through space with brute force rather than the elegant efficiency they were used to. "By the ancient songs," whispered another crew member, "it looks like a fortress that learned to fly." The vessel's approach was steady and direct, nothing like the graceful arcs their own ships would fly. These beings, whatever they were, moved through space like they owned it. The ship's design suggested a species that expected trouble at every turn, that built everything to withstand the worst possible conditions. As the alien vessel drew closer, the Vialians could make out more details that filled them with dread. The hull was scarred and patched in multiple places, suggesting this ship had seen actual combat or survived impacts that would have destroyed any Vialian craft. Strange protrusions jutted out at odd angles. Some looked like sensors, others like tools, and still others like weapons. "Captain," Lylan reported, her voice now barely audible, "they're hailing us." Threnic closed his eyes for a moment, saying a silent prayer to the stellar winds. His people had sent out a distress call expecting gentle rescue from their own kind. Instead, something from the most dangerous planet in known space was coming to answer it. Whatever was aboard that ship had evolved in conditions that would kill a Violian just by stepping outside. Now those same creatures were approaching their helpless vessel, and there was absolutely nothing the Violians could do to stop them. Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the Ironclad, studying the alien vessel through the reinforced viewport. His weathered hands gripped the metal railing as he took in sight of the most beautiful ship he'd ever seen. The alien craft looked like it was made of crystal and starlight, all flowing curves and elegant lines that seemed to dance in the vacuum of space. "Well, I'll be damned," muttered his engineer, Tommy Bradley, peering over Jake's shoulder. "That thing looks like a piece of art floating out there. Art that's about to become space junk if we don't move fast," Jake replied, noting the obvious signs of system failures cascading through the alien ship. Emergency lights flickered along its hull, and what looked like atmosphere was venting from several points. The human crew moved with practiced efficiency around the bridge. These weren't diplomats or scientists. They were working people who made their living in the harsh depths of space. Miners, mechanics, former soldiers, and salvage operators who dealt with emergencies as part of their daily routine. "Pete, get the boarding party ready," Jake ordered the security chief. "Full environmental gear. We don't know what kind of atmosphere they breathe, and from the looks of that hull, they might not have much left." Chief Wilson nodded and headed for the airlocks, already pulling on his heavy-duty suit. The human equipment looked bulky and primitive compared to the sleek alien vessel, but it was built to last. Every piece of gear was designed with the assumption that something would go wrong, that backup systems would fail, and that humans would need to fix things with their bare hands if necessary. Dr. Kate Richards, the ship's medic, was already prepping her medical kit. "Any idea what we're dealing with biologically?" she asked Jake. "Not a clue, but if they're in trouble, we help first and figure out the rest later. That's always been a human way." The Ironclad moved alongside the alien vessel with the subtle grace that came from years of dangerous salvage work. Jake had seen plenty of ships in distress, but never anything quite like this. The alien craft seemed almost alive, its hull shifting colors and patterns that might have been beautiful under better circumstances. "Initiating docking procedures," called out Navigator Lisa Chun from her station. "Their airlock design is completely different from ours, but I think we can make it work." Inside the alien ship, the boarding party found themselves in a corridor that looked more like the inside of a flower than a spacecraft. Everything was organic curves and soft, bioluminescent lighting. The walls seemed to pulse gently, and the air shimmered with an almost musical quality. "Jesus," breathed Tommy Bradley, his voice distorted by the comm system in his helmet. "It's like being inside a living thing." But the beauty was marred by obvious signs of catastrophic failure. Sparks flew from damaged control panels, and sections of the corridor were filled with some kind of toxic gas that would have killed an unprotected human instantly. The first aliens they encountered were huddled in what appeared to be a safe room, and Jake had to do a double take when he saw them. They looked like they were made of living glass, with translucent skin that showed delicate internal structures. Gossamer wings folded against their backs, and their large eyes reflected the humans' helmet lights like mirrors. The aliens' reaction to seeing the humans was immediate and terrifying. They pressed themselves against the far wall, their wing membranes fluttering in what was clearly panic. To them, the humans in their bulky environmental suits must have looked like walking tanks. "Easy there," Jake said softly, though he knew they probably couldn't understand him. He raised his hand slowly, trying to look as non-threatening as possible while wearing what amounted to personal armor. But there was no time for proper first contact protocols. The ship was dying around them, and these fragile beings wouldn't survive much longer. Tommy Bradley was already moving toward a control panel that was showering the corridor with sparks, pulling tools from his belt with the confidence of someone who'd fixed 1,000 broken things in hostile environments. Dr. Richards knelt beside an injured alien, her movements careful and deliberate. The creature was so delicate that she was afraid she might hurt it just by touching it wrong. Its skin was torn in several places, and some kind of luminescent fluid was leaking from the wounds. "I need to help you," she said gently, knowing the alien couldn't understand but hoping her tone would convey her intentions. She began cleaning the wounds with the most basic supplies in her kit, techniques that probably looked barbaric compared to whatever advanced medical technology these beings were used to. The aliens watched in growing amazement as the humans moved through their dying ship like they owned the place. These creatures from the Death World didn't just survive in conditions that would kill a Violian instantly. They seemed completely at home in them. The situation aboard the alien vessel was getting worse by the minute. Captain Thrennick watched in growing horror as a human called Tommy Bradley approached their reactor core with nothing but basic tools and what appeared to be complete disregard for his own safety. "Stop him," Thrennick called out to Captain Morrison. "That section is flooded with quantum radiation. He'll be dead in seconds." Jake Morrison looked at the alien captain with something resembling amusement. "Tommy's handled worse than this. Trust me." The Violians could only stare as Tommy Bradley walked directly into the radiation field that surrounded their failing reactor. Their most advanced sensors showed levels that should have killed any living creature instantly, yet this human was moving around inside it like he was fixing a broken sink in his kitchen. "This is impossible," whispered Science Officer Lylan, her delicate instruments detecting radiation levels climbing higher and higher. "His cellular structure should be dissolving. His DNA should be breaking apart at the molecular level." But Tommy just kept working, his thick gloves manipulating their delicate quantum systems with surprising gentleness. Where Violian technology relied on perfect balance and harmony, human tools were built for brute force solutions. Tommy was using what looked like a primitive welding device to fuse their crystal matrix back together. "Hey, Jake." Tommy's voice crackled over the comm system. "Their setup is actually pretty smart. Just way too fragile for real-world use. Give me another 10 minutes, and I'll have this thing purring again." Meanwhile, Dr. Richards was working on the injured aliens with techniques that horrified the Violian medical officer. She was using actual physical contact to treat wounds, applying pressure to stop bleeding, and injecting medicine directly into their systems. To the Violians, who used sophisticated energy fields and quantum healing chambers, it looked like barbaric surgery from the Dark Ages. "Please," the Violian medic begged, "our healing chambers can handle these injuries much more efficiently." "Your healing chambers are offline," Dr. Richards replied patiently, not looking up from her patient. "And this Violian here is bleeding out. Sometimes the old ways work better than fancy technology." The injured alien was making soft chirping sounds that seemed to indicate pain, but as Dr. Richards worked, the sounds gradually became more peaceful. Her crude bandages and basic painkillers were actually working, stabilizing patients that the advanced Violian medical systems had given up on. Across the ship, other humans were tackling problems with methods that defied every principle of Violian engineering. When a crucial support beam began failing, mechanic David Walsh didn't look for sophisticated repair tools. Instead, he positioned himself directly under the beam and held it in place with his own body, while his partner welded reinforcements around it. He's supporting several tons of metal with his bare hands. Lylan reported in disbelief. The stress calculations show that beam should have crushed him. "Humans are built different," Jake explained, watching his crew work with obvious pride. "We come from a world that's constantly trying to kill us. Makes us tougher than we look." The Violian sophisticated automated systems required perfect conditions to function. When those conditions weren't met, the systems simply shut down to protect themselves. Human solutions, on the other hand, were designed with the assumption that everything would eventually break, that conditions would never be perfect, and that repairs would need to be made under the worst possible circumstances. Chief Wilson was rerouting power through damaged circuits using techniques that would have made any Violian engineer faint. He was literally bypassing their safety systems, creating connections that their computers said were impossible, and somehow making it all work through sheer determination and improvisation. "Your people are either very brave or very foolish," Captain Thrennick said to Jake as they watched the humans work. "Probably both," Jake admitted. "But that's what keeps us alive out here. We don't wait for perfect solutions or ideal conditions. We just fix what's broken and move on." The cultural differences became even more apparent when the ship's main computer core began failing. The Violian approach would have been to carefully analyze the problem, run diagnostics, and wait for replacement parts to arrive from their homeworld. The human approach was for Navigation Officer Lisa Chun to crawl inside the computer core with a flashlight and start replacing components by hand. "She's interfacing directly with our quantum processing matrix," Lylan reported, her voice filled with awe and terror. The feedback loops should have fried her nervous system. But Lisa emerged from a computer core 20 minutes later, covered in some kind of luminescent dust, but otherwise unharmed. Your computer was having a nervous breakdown, she announced cheerfully. Just needed someone to talk it through its problems and replace a few burnout connectors. As the humans continued their work, the Violians began to understand something profound about these creatures from the death world. They didn't just survive in hostile conditions. They had learned to see opportunity where others saw only disaster. As the emergency systems finally stabilized, Captain Threnick found himself standing in the observation lounge with Captain Morrison, both of them looking out at the stars through the crystal viewport. The immediate crisis was over, but neither captain seemed ready to end this unexpected encounter. "Your world," Threnick said softly, his melodic voice carrying genuine curiosity rather than the fear it held hours earlier. "Tell me about this Earth of yours." Jake leaned against the railing, his weathered face thoughtful. "Well, it's not exactly what you'd call peaceful. We've got earthquakes that can level cities, storms that can flatten entire forests, and winters that'll freeze you solid if you're not prepared. The gravity is strong enough to crush most beings, and the atmosphere is so reactive it'll rust metal just sitting there." The Violian captain's large eyes widened. "And your people evolved in these conditions?" "Evolved, adapted, and learned to love it," Jake said with a grin. "Every generation got a little tougher, a little more stubborn. Had to, or we wouldn't have survived." Threnick was quiet for a moment, processing this information. "We studied your planet from a distance. Our scientists classified it as uninhabitable. The radiation levels from your star, the seismic activity, the atmospheric pressure, it should have prevented any complex life from developing." "Funny thing about should-haves," Jake replied. "They don't mean much when you're trying to stay alive. My great-grandfather used to say that Earth doesn't care about your plans. It just keeps throwing problems at you until you learn to solve them." In the engineering section, Tommy Bradley was explaining human repair philosophy to a group of fascinated Violian technicians. "See, this is your problem right here," he said, pointing to their elegant power coupling system. "It's beautiful, efficient, and works perfectly under ideal conditions. But what happens when conditions aren't ideal?" The lead Violian engineer, whose name sounded like wind chimes to human ears, gestured helplessly. We return to port for proper repairs." "But what if port is 3 weeks away and you need power now?" Tommy asked. "That's why we build everything with backups, and backups of backups. This coupling of yours could be reinforced with some basic metal supports. Won't be as pretty, but it'll keep working even if half the ship is falling apart." The Violian engineers exchanged glances. Their entire approach to technology was based on achieving perfect harmony between components. The idea of deliberately building in redundancy and expecting failure was completely foreign to them. Meanwhile, Dr. Richards was having her own cultural exchange with the Violian medical staff. "Your healing chambers are incredible," she admitted, studying the quantum field generators that could repair tissue at the cellular level. "But what do you do when the power goes out?" The Violian medic looked confused. "The power never goes out. Our systems are perfectly stable." "Until today," Dr. Richards pointed out gently. "When your perfect system failed, you couldn't help the injured. But basic field medicine, knowing how to stop bleeding, set bones, and treat shock, that works anywhere, anytime, with or without power." The conversation that really changed everything happened between Jake and Threnick as they shared what passed for coffee on both their worlds. The Violian version was a luminescent liquid that tasted like starlight, while the human coffee was thick, black, and strong enough to wake the dead. "I have to ask," Threnick said, sipping the human coffee and trying not to wince at its intensity, "don't your people ever want peace? A world without constant danger?" Jake thought about this for a long moment. "We've got plenty of peaceful places on Earth. Beautiful valleys, calm lakes, perfect beaches. But you know what? That's not where we build our great cities. We build them on fault lines and hurricane zones, in places where volcanoes threaten us. Because the dangerous places are also where the resources are, where the opportunities are." "That makes no sense," Threnick said, but his tone was more thoughtful than critical. "Maybe not to you, But danger keeps us sharp, keeps us innovative. Every threat becomes a problem to solve, and every problem we solve makes us stronger. Your people build a paradise, and that's wonderful. But paradise doesn't prepare you for when things go wrong. Threnik was quiet for a long time, considering this. And yet, you came to help us. Strangers from a species you'd never met, facing problems that weren't your own. That's what neighbors do, Jake said simply. Help each other when things get tough. As the two captains talked, their crews were learning from each other in ways neither had expected. The humans marveled at Vialian precision instruments that could detect quantum fluctuations across vast distances. The Vialians studied human tools that could function in conditions that would destroy their own equipment. You know, Jake said as their conversation wound down, we make a pretty good team. Your people can see problems coming from light years away, and my people specialize in solving problems that seem impossible. 3 weeks later, Jake Morrison stood in the observation deck of the newly constructed joint station orbiting between Earth and the Vialian homeworld. The facility was unlike anything either species had built before. Part human industrial efficiency, part Vialian artistic elegance. It looked like someone had taught a factory to dance. I still can't believe they actually approved this, Tommy Bradley said, joining his captain at the viewport. Below them, construction crews from both species worked side by side on the first joint exploration vessel. The ship was a fascinating hybrid, human durability wrapped around Vialian precision technology. Took some convincing on both sides, Jake admitted. Half the Earth Council thought we were crazy for trusting aliens. Half the Vialian High Assembly thought we were too dangerous to work with. The breakthrough had come when Captain Threnik presented his report to the Vialian leadership. He described watching humans walk through radiation that would kill his people instantly, repair systems that should have been impossible to fix, and treat desperate situations as routine problems to solve. They called us Deathworlders. Threnik had told his government. But perhaps that is exactly what the galaxy needs. These humans don't see barriers. They see puzzles. They don't accept impossible. They find another way. The human reaction had been more predictable. When word spread that Earth's first contact had been a rescue mission, public opinion swung heavily in favor of cooperation. The idea of helping peaceful aliens explore dangerous parts of space appealed to humanity's sense of adventure and natural desire to be useful. Dr. Richards walked over to join them, carrying a data pad filled with reports from a joint medical facility they'd established. The biological compatibility tests are incredible, she said excitedly. Vialian medical technology can heal human injuries we never thought possible, and human medical techniques work on species they've never encountered before. The real revolution had started when scientists from both species began comparing notes. Vialian sensors could detect problems across entire star systems, identifying dangerous phenomena, resource deposits, and signs of life from unprecedented distances. Human engineering could build ships and equipment that could actually reach those distant places and survive whatever they found there. Look at that beauty, Tommy said, pointing to the ship taking shape below them. The Harmony Pioneer was the first vessel designed from scratch by both species working together. Its hull had the flowing lines of Vialian aesthetics, but the thick armor and redundant systems that humans insisted on. Its sensor arrays could detect quantum fluctuations across light years, while its engines were built to push through gravitational storms that would tear apart conventional spacecraft. The crew selection had been interesting. Every human volunteer had to pass psychological tests to work with beings who could be accidentally injured by a too enthusiastic handshake. Every Vialian volunteer had to prove they could function in the kind of chaotic, improvised environment that humans thrived in. Captain Morrison came a familiar melodic voice. Threnik approached, his gossamer wings folded neatly against his back. He'd become something of a celebrity among his own people for being the first to successfully work with humans. The final crew assignments had been approved. Jake looked at the list and smiled. The Harmony Pioneer will be jointly commanded by both species, with humans handling engineering, security, and damage control, while Vialians manage navigation, scientific analysis, and communications. It was a partnership that played to both species' strengths. Where's our first mission taking us? Dr. Richards asked. Threnik's large eyes lit up with excitement. The Maelstrom Cluster. It's been classified as completely inaccessible for over 3 centuries. The gravitational anomalies and radiation storms have destroyed every probe sent there. Sounds like our kind of place. Tommy grinned. The Maelstrom cluster represented everything this partnership was about. It was a region of space where incredible scientific discoveries waited, but the conditions were so hostile that no single species could survive there long enough to study them. Vialian sensors had detected signs of unique phenomena and possibly even ancient artifacts, but their delicate ships couldn't withstand the cluster's violent environment. News of the joint mission had already spread throughout both civilizations and beyond. Other alien species that had previously dismissed humans as primitive Deathworlders were suddenly very interested in what this partnership might accomplish. The galaxy's forbidden zones, regions too dangerous for normal exploration, might not be forbidden anymore. You know what the best part is? Jake said as they watched the construction crews working below. 6 months ago, we didn't even know aliens existed. Now we're about to explore places that have been mysteries for centuries. The Harmony Pioneer represented more than just a new ship. It was proof that the galaxy's most dangerous places might also hold its greatest opportunities, if you had the right combination of vision and determination to reach them. As Jake looked out at the stars, he realized that humanity had found its place in the galactic community, not as conquerors or diplomats, but as a species willing to go where others couldn't and solve problems others had given up on.